have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was me and Rank. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
And welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, powered by Fantasy Points Media Group. And I nailed it this week, so we're off to a better start than we were one week.
Great job. Bravo.
You all come to us for our guest this week, so we thought we'd go double down on this one. And we get Daniel Dopp and Kyle. Oh boy, here we go. We're going to screw it up here. Kyle Sope?
Soppy.
Soppy.
Close enough.
Yes.
Really close enough. You got the first name right.
You know what? I've said this time and time again. If I can get that first name right, I call that a moral victory on every board. At least we're not pronouncing names in Massachusetts or something like that, because we know that would not end well for me.
That's so good. I'm really excited. Thank you guys for letting us come out and hang out with you guys. Kyle and I we went climbing a little bit earlier today, and then he was coming over to watch some of the basketball game tonight. So appreciate you letting me bring him and tag along as we do this. So he's our fantasy focused researcher. He does so much for what we do for our show. Kyle is like the backbone for all of that, so much of our note and getting things around. So Kyle's fingerprints are all over what it is that we do. I just try to make everybody sound good. He's the one that does all the hard work.
Nice.
Who are we rooting for tonight in the basketball game?
I'm rooting for the Bucks.
Come on.
Okay.
We need a game 7 at the very least. I mean, Durant does what he did game 5, but we need 7 games. That's just what it is.
There we go.
See, I'm a fan without a team. You think I'd naturally gravitate towards the Toronto Raptors and stuff like that, but not so much. So I'm still a free agent fan here. So I'm seeing who can win my fandom here through this playoffs. I know certain teams that won't be there. Brooklyn, I'm not a big fan of. I kind of like what the Suns are doing. I might come jump on that bandwagon too.
Yeah.
The Bucks I like, because nobody likes the Bucks. You know, you don't meet very many Milwaukee Bucks fans out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be a kind of a team. Plus, I'm kind of from the country here. Throwing a deer on my hat's kind of like John Deere. Kind of all makes sense to me.
You know what? I like the way you're thinking with that. I'm 100% with you, although I grew up a Detroit sports fan, so I've been a Pistons fan through and through, but I like to see the Bucks take it home. They're just like a city I want to root for.
Well, those Pistons teams growing up as a kid, man, those are some teams I gravitated to. You know, the bad boys there, Dennis Rodman, and then you got, let's say Thomas. I wouldn't really consider him much of a bad boy, but Dennis Rodman was my jam growing up. You know what I mean? He was the guy I always followed no matter what. Undersized guy, a little bit of that attitude. Didn't matter who he'd match up with. He was just fantastic. And then he had, the clotheslines. Bear out there clotheslining fools. Like that's the kind of stuff I like.
Leave it to the Canadian not to lead with a basketball move. He led with a clothesline.
I grew up watching those bad boys teams with my dad. I was probably 6 or 7 when we won those first 2 championships, those back-to-back years. So watching Zeke and Joe Dumars and Mark Aguirre and John Sally and Mahorn and Lambeer go out there and beat people up back when you used to be able to do that in basketball.
It's not basketball.
Yeah.
That's not basketball.
That's basketball.
Oh, come on.
Basketball.
That's basketball to me. And it makes sense. Rick Mahorn always said, if you're going to foul someone, make sure that you make them make both.
Don't foul. Be better.
No.
Come on.
Anyways.
So when you were watching The Last Dance, were you like the only one rooting for Isaiah Thomas?
Right, yeah, he's rooting for the villain.
No.
Anti-James Bond.
And I was really lucky when The Last Dance came out. I got to watch a screener version of it as a part of working with Jalen and Jacoby crew. We did a podcast that accompanied The Last Dance. So I got to watch it a little bit early. And every week it was amazing. Growing up a Detroit Pistons fan, like I hated those Bulls teams. I hate Michael Jordan. It is not somebody like I can totally tell you he's the greatest player to ever play the game. But I have no love for him in my heart with what it is that it was like between us as like a Pistons and Bulls fans. And watching this documentary, like just it changed a lot of my perspective. And it softened me to the idea of everything that not only Michael went through, but all of his work ethic is just second to none. And so I appreciated him in a much different way, being able to watch that. So Kyle and I are on episode. I haven't been able to watch it with somebody first. So like that's why we're having these mandates every once in a while so that we can work our way through The Last Dance. Because when it came out, we were all in quarantine and I didn't have anybody to like share it with. So we're trying to watch it with each other and have some fun doing that.
Here's a question for you. Do you think we get the Michael Jordan we all know and love if it's no Detroit Pistons?
Absolutely not.
I'll agree there. I'll agree there.
No. Those Pistons teams,
they made him work. Yeah.
Yep. They were the catalyst that helped propel him to be that next level of who he became. And everywhere along Jordan's journey, whenever he met, that obstacle, it was not all right. Well, I guess I've reached my limit. It's just how am I going to beat this? What is it that I'm going to do? And it took him a little while, but he eventually got it done. So. Not that I want to advocate for Michael Jordan here. Don't get me wrong, but very proud of him.
So we've kind of done the little ESPN circuit here. We know Belle, she's a big 49ers fan. Barry is a big Washington football fan. Then you got yourselves here. You got Detroit through and through here with the Lions. So you've suffered long enough. Kyle here is a Packers fan along with Tera. So kind of talk about how that Packers fandom and how that Lions fandom really got kickstarted in your guys' lives.
His is simple based on where he grew up. I just grew up in the Brett Favre era. I started watching the games, fell in love with the gunslinger, and how could you not? And so I've stuck with it, and we've had like 2 quarterbacks during my entire lifetime. So I've been a little spoiled here, but I stick with the Packers since I was young in '97 Super Bowl against the Patriots, and no real reason to pivot off of it.
I love that, Kyle. I have the exact same story.
See, there you go. There's nothing wrong with that.
And I got the same story you guys got, but except mine's cooler because I was a Kenny Stabler fan. I fell in love with those 70s Raiders teams that were actually worth watching. So that's where my fandom came. You know how hard it is to become a Canadian to be a Raiders fan? You know what I mean? Like, that's not a natural connecting point. Same with Tera. She's from like South Carolina. How do you become a Packers fan in that whole kind of swing there?
The black hole feels like the least Canadian thing of all time.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be, right? Canadians are the nicest people on planet Earth, and I don't think there's a single person in the black hole that would like save your mom from like a bus or something. But
they like to fight, and Canadians like to fight.
Oh, that's true.
So you got that,
They've got a little like hockey in their blood.
Did you guys have everybody from the woods around you come and watch? Because I'm assuming you guys just got TV in the 70s in Canada, right? Like that's...
Yeah, it was right around there. The problem is we've got a bunch of little secret squirrels running around chewing on our internet cables. That makes it more difficult, right?
Wow.
I like it.
The question I need to know from Matt, though, is, Matt, how does it feel for the very first time in the history of this show that you do not have the best facial hair on the screen?
I know. It's quite humbling at times here. Like when you see that fantastic, gorgeous beard right there from Daniel, you're like, man, I need to bring that back. I kind of miss it, but the handlebars, they suffice. I'm not bad with the handlebars. It's got its own little characteristic here. Throw a little cowboy hat on. We're ready to roll.
I can't do this spot right here in the middle, and this doesn't connect. So like if my mustache has to come over it to make it look fuller. All of this down here is great, but I can't. I just never could grow it. And I had my hair up, but I grew my hair out over pandemic too. So we're all over the place.
We kind of joke around because this is a little deceptive here. Like if I start to pull some hair up, we kind of get right up there to eyeball level with the stash. We can go rolly fingers here for all those baseball fans. So we can mix and match here with the stash.
Love it. I love it.
So we're hitting that kind of the prime time. We'll talk Packers. We'll talk Lions here since it's the low-hanging fruit here. We'll start with Kyle first. What's going on in Green Bay? Aaron Rodgers, he's not coming. Valdez, none of the Packers are showing. I think A.J. Dillon was the only starter from offense that actually showed up to the first camp. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, just A.J. Dillon's thighs, too. Like, we weren't really worried about the running back himself. Right? You just need the lower body. I wish I could tell you what was going on with Aaron Rodgers. I really do. Like, this hurts. It hurts. Like I said, I've had 2 quarterbacks that I've really had to root for. We had, Matt Flynn, week 17 kind of stuff. But there's 2 quarterbacks I've been watching, and the fact that I might be taken away from that, I feel spoiled. Like, it feels like a rich man's problem to be complaining that, like, for the first time in 30 some years, I don't have a quarterback I'm comfortable with. But Damn it, I'm going to complain because I thought I had Aaron Rodgers, and right now I'm back confident.
If I can step in really quickly, guys, it feels like you went out of your way to mention a Matt Flynn Week 17 game where he threw 7 touchdowns against the Detroit Lions.
I was going to say, that was one heck of a one-game span.
Like, come on.
purpose.
Yeah. Like, how is that going to become a part of natural conversation? You obviously came to the table with that.
It earned him a lot of money, and I prepped one note for this show, and it was how to needle you with the Lions-Packers comment.
And you come from the same stock there. You guys have been pretty set at the quarterback position as well in Detroit with Matt Stafford there for all these years. And unfortunately, a lot of that time, in my opinion, was kind of wasted, a la Calvin Johnson, a la Barry Sanders. That seems to be the book, unfortunately, since Bobby Lane, right? That seems to be the book on the Lions going back for a while. What's going on in Detroit this year?
I'm stoked with this new coaching staff. I am excited about what we have going on in the front office. Listen, you can make all the Dan Campbell like jokes and comments that you want, but everything that I hear about the guy is just how much the players love to play with him, how much he gets in and he's a part of this. I feel like between last year's coaching regime and this year's coaching regime, it's so night and day different. And having Campbell get in there and mix it up with everybody as a part of practice, getting down and being like a part of the team feels very different. And so that, including the staff that he built around him, I'm really excited to see what happens. Now, I'm not holding out hope.
You didn't mention the quarterback position for a reason.
I'm not holding out hope. I'm excited about what the Lions have been able to finally do. I really like where they're headed from a front office perspective. Obviously, Jared Goff is a downgrade from Matthew Stafford, but Jared Goff's not a schmuck. Yeah. Like he is an NFL quarterback, and we've watched him succeed. Now, he had a really good defense to help him out, and he had guys to play around with him. But if he wasn't good, he couldn't have got there in the first place. If he couldn't have held his own with everybody else on that field, he never would have gotten there in the first place. So for me, yes, massive downgrade from Matthew Stafford, but what we got in those picks, by the way, based on every other trade that has happened this offseason, the Detroit Lions absolutely pulled off the best trade of the offseason by getting Jared Goff and 2 first-rounders and a third-rounder and moving Matthew Stafford and not having to take on all of Jared Goff's bonus. Like, dude, they crushed it in comparison to everyone else.
Yeah. I have a sleeper that's one of my favorite players coming out of this draft. So, Daniel, please tell me that you love Jonathan Adams Jr.
Ooh. I'm not going to say that I don't love Jonathan Adams Jr. I don't know enough about Jonathan Adams Jr. How about you listen, I'll tell you what, you sell me on him right now, and I'll tell you whether or not your 30-second elevator pitch worked on me. Deal?
Got you. He's a bully at wide receiver. He's going to beat people up. He's physical. He's a lot of attitude. He's going to bring that Detroit, city energy to the stadium, you know what I mean? That fighting people, knocking people out, stiff-arming people. He's a little bit slow. His 40 time came in like a 4.59 or something like that, but I like receivers that run 4.5, so I think he'll be all right. But the guy has great hands.
Size,
I think he's like 6'1", 220, something around there. But yeah,
6'3", 220.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, he's a big kid, So and he has a lot of attitude. That's one of my favorite players, just off attitude.
I'll tell you what. It's been tough with the Lions wide receivers to keep everybody straight because basically everyone is and I don't want to say nobody, but it's a lot of not names.
That's saying nobody.
Yeah.
Not names in a way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's obviously a position, and I love the way that, in all honesty, that the Lions are building. But I think one of the easier positions within the NFL to be able to find talent based on the way that this game has changed and become such a pass-heavy game. And not that I think that you can just find wide receivers off the street, but I do feel like it's an easier place to be able to find something, a diamond in the rough, whatnot. Kenny Golladay was a 4th rounder when we took him, and he's looked fantastic, as a part of all of that. And every year you always have a couple of guys that stand out that are a little bit farther down that line. So I think between Amon-Ra St. Brown, whether it's Jonathan Adams or Pick, there's a number of undrafted free agents that we had come in. that I think, given the right amount of time and getting the right chances, could do some work here. There's certainly reps to be had within that wide receiving core. So
absolutely.
Well, I have 3 observations from the Detroit Lions. Basically, the Detroit Lions wide receiver room is the Packers wide receiver room minus Devontae
minus
Adams.
Minus one of the best 5 receivers in the game.
You even have a St. Brown.
You're talking. There's 2 St. Browns.
Yeah.
There's that coalition there. Geronimo Allison, I think, is in Detroit this year.
Yeah.
You got Perryman. You got Tyrell Williams acting as the MVS, and that other guy that no one talks about, Lazard, right? So you got kind of those same 2 guys. You throw in Quintus Cephas there and whatever his name is, and you kind of basically got the same wide receiver room. My second observation is, people talk about how pets start to look like their owners at some point. How are we feeling about Hawkinson's new look when it comes to Dan Campbell? Because he's starting to look almost like a spitting image of his coach.
I love it. I love Hawkinson. When I put my hair down, I feel like we look a lot more alike than.
We need that in slow motion.
It has at least
Put some music over it.
At least a Hawkinson-esque kind of a vibe, and so I'm into it, man. Grow that hair out. You do your thing. My beard's a little longer than his, but I'm trying to channel my inner TJ Hawkinson, not just because he's 23 years old and I'm an old man, but I'm in on it. I love the look.
And then my third observation is, and maybe I'm playing this Kevin Bacon game where I'm connecting stuff here, but you got Dan Campbell, and you've got, people like soup, right? Tomato soup, perhaps. We've got that kind of Campbell soup there. I know there's a little bit of a background with even Mr. Yates with the soup kind of reference there. Is there some kind of tie-in where maybe Dan Campbell really got you because of the last name more than anything?
Ooh, I could see that.
Interesting take.
Yeah, we can work on that a little bit. I'm gonna see. Hopefully, last year we went to, not last year. I guess it was the year before. We went to Lions training camp. Everybody last year feels like it was 4 years, so it's hard. But we went to Lions training camp, and so we're hoping one of these years to be able to get back out there, and hopefully we can get a little bit of a one-on-one with Dan Campbell and see if we can crack that nut, because I think that would be a lot of fun.
That'd be
Now,
go ahead, Tara.
Sorry, I was going to slide one little question in. I hope I don't start a debate, but I got to ask the running back situation. Do you feel like Swift is really going to take over and be that lead guy, or are we going to have a committee situation with Jamal Williams?
I think it's going to be probably like a 65-35 kind of a split more often than not, or a 70-30. I think they want DeAndre Swift to be that guy. I think he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. And I think he's got really great lateral quickness. I really liked watching him run a lot last year, especially, towards the end of the year, my biggest complaint was the idea that Adrian Peterson was on the field more than I was understanding why Adrian Peterson was on the field. It's just like, we're not a team that's going to make the playoffs. Why is it that it's nothing against AP. Like, why are we giving him run when we have this kid that, I'd love to see him out there. So I think that they're more invested in him this year. I think the addition of Jamal Williams is, I don't want to say it's going to be like an Alvin Kamara and a Latavius Murray kind of a feel, but it's, a little bit more of Jamal Williams will be able to be that goal line guy, a little bit of a more between the tackles guy, and he's got plenty of goodness in him. You're a Packers guy.
Yeah, I saw way too much of Jamal Williams. I wanted him off the field because we had a better running back.
Because you had Aaron Jones.
It sounds like you're in a similar spot here, so I'm here to tell you that he's going to be around and it's going to be a pain. So,
so Matt, earlier today, Matt has a daughter who is pregnant, and her water broke earlier today. So he is tending to something right now. I'm not sure if it's that, but if so, hope all goes well.
He's on the clock.
And yeah, if he comes back, he'll certainly, be right back. We'll see. But in the meantime, it's perfect timing because we're ready to move past some of the football talk. We're contractually obligated to talk a little bit about it here in the beginning. It's a football show, but the real part that everybody wants, and if you've watched this show before, that we want to go behind the grind. We want to talk about your story, about what led you to where you are, and just get to know you a little bit. And we start off with the same question every time. And no pressure, but Stefania so far has had the best answer to this question of anybody. but I know you're a music guy. So when we think about intro music, let's say you're the closer for for
Tigers.
whoever, the Tigers. There you go. I'm not sure they win enough games to be the closer, but yeah.
Do they have
He might be their closer.
Yeah, you might be. So, or if you're a wrestler, what's the perfect intro music that's going to introduce you to a crowd?
That's for both of you guys.
For both of you guys, yeah.
Oh, I got my answer because I'm not a music guy, so I got like 2 songs to choose from here.
Go ahead. You go first.
Space Jam theme song. No questions asked.
Oh, I Believe I Can Fly. That one?
I'm sorry? No.
What's the
Welcome to the Space
Welcome
Jam. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize there was a song. Oh, it's my bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could go through the whole album.
No.
I'm just like crawling to home plate here.
I love that.
Love it.
I can't believe you haven't thought of this before.
I think mine. The problem is there's so many. I love so much music. Like, and it's like, but I think it would probably be. It would either be "Shake It Out" or "Cope" by Manchester Orchestra. They're both like pretty like heavy, like fun songs, and so I think those would be. And I want to represent my dudes. I love those guys, so I'd probably pick that.
There we go. Very cool. That we have not had that answer before. And yeah, so that's not something I'm familiar with. You want to go ahead and sing a couple bars and let us know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so this is like the fun joke on the podcast is like Matthew always. We were talking, and I don't remember how it started, but somebody asked a question about. I think it was at a live show. Asked a question about Yellow Card.
Oh my God.
And it became this thing where it's like Matthew was adamant that Yellow Card was like this crappy band that no one has ever heard of. And I was like, Matthew, Yellow Card is like a legit band. They're on the radio. People have heard of Yellow Card. Even if you don't know them, like they're definitely a band. And he was like, I don't think so. So then it became like this crappy bands no one's ever heard of. And so now they always give me a hard time because a lot of the bands that I love is, more in like the indie scene or the, emo scene and that kind of stuff. So I love being able to find, I don't know. New music is always fun.
I got the lyrics right here if you need them.
I would pull out the guitar and play it, but I don't want to, copyright laws and stuff.
To end the show, we'll do that. There you go.
Yeah.
So I missed this little bit here. So if you could just backtrack here. Which band was that?
Manchester Orchestra. They're a band out of Atlanta, Georgia.
How do they compare to being when you were introduced to Pedro?
Oh, Pedro the Lion. Andy Hall and I, who is the lead singer of Manchester Orchestra. In fact, all the guys I know in that band, massively influenced by Pedro the Lion and David Bazan and a lot of what it is that he wrote about. Big shift in conversation. So if you don't want to go this direction, we can totally go a different direction. But I grew up very much in the evangelical world, and my grandpa was a pastor, my uncle was a pastor, and so I've been raised in the church my entire life and have had faith my whole life. As a part of that, Pedro came in and it was, I thought, really valuable to me to be able to question and test and understand and make the faith that I had real to me. And it was for a while something that I, have been scared about. And I've, especially over the last year and a half, Lord knows I have thought about my faith and what it stands for more often than not. But I am very much, I will just say that was a big thing for me as a part of that. Pedro the Lion helped me be able to find who I am and help me understand why I believe what I believe and take it from something that was like an adolescent belief into this is what I believe and this is what I want to, build my foundation and morality on as an adult. So whole different thing, not to get like super serious, but Pedro the Lion, I love David Bazan. Had him at the house. He played a house show here in my basement, which was amazing. To be able to have him, my favorite musician of all time, come into my house and play, which was unreal. And so, very influenced by Pedro.
We can get as serious as you want. Like, serious. A part of this is like just getting to know you guys. So, like, that's certainly not going to be anything we're afraid of. So, get as serious as you want. But I love that. That's having a chance to have somebody that you look up to like that. That's hanging out with you. That's incredible. Yeah,
appreciate you sharing. Real. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot for me as with faith in trying to figure out why do I believe what it is that I believe and making sure that it's real. And I mean that for everyone. It's easy for me as somebody who would call themselves a Christian to say that, I want to understand why I believe. And if I don't believe something, then I think it's important for me to know why. Like, it's important for me to understand what my belief is centered around.
Yeah.
And I think that's for everybody, whether it's Christianity or Judaism or if you're Muslim or if it doesn't make a difference, like find what it is for you. And how about we just support people and love people and just be good humans to each other? I mean, how does that sound? So
Well said.
Awesome.
Well said. So yeah, kind of keep on diving back. So we know both of your favorite teams. So let's talk about sports growing up. What did you play growing up? What were your favorite sports?
I think we both played basketball. It was basketball for me.
A lot.
That was my sport. Got career-ending injury for football at age 7, so that turned into research for a career pretty quick. But basketball was the one that I could play the longest. I guess a white guy that sits on the perimeter and can shoot. And game kind of age as well. So
yeah,
that's my style. I know Daniel.
Kyle Korver has cemented his role as that.
Yeah, no, we share a first name.
That's true. That's true. Basketball for me, basketball and baseball. I didn't play football. I was just too little. I was pretty skinny until I joined the military. I weighed like 130 pounds. And I was like 24, 25. Like my metabolism was crazy high. I ate terribly. It's not like I was healthy. I was just, I guess, lucky. So I was not allowed to play football because I was too little, and my mom was worried that I was going to get hurt. And I was that guy in high school who let his mom decide whether or not he was going to play football. So, no big deal. So I played basketball and baseball a bunch.
Nice.
Wasn't great at either one of them. I was okay.
You're good. You can play basketball. I've never seen you play baseball.
That's the thing I love about the show, because you get quite the diverse mix there. Major played a lot of football. Calvin was a baseball guy. Tara was into basketball as well. I pretty much, like, small town community thing, we did everything from football to rugby to basketball. We kind of did a little bit of everything there. So it's fantastic to see where everyone's background in sports actually
What was
comes
it? What was that?
Curling? It's curling.
Curling! Thank you!
Yeah.
Calvin!
Like shuffle.
By the way,
I
one of the greatest movies of all times, Men with Brooms. It's a curling comedy. You might want to check that out.
So good. Oh, I love it.
Wait, did you guys grow up together?
No.
Nope.
No, we met when I came to Bristol to work. But yeah, and he grew up in Detroit. I grew up in upstate New York, so we couldn't have been. I guess we could have been further, but we weren't close.
Yeah, we were not close. Yeah, we just became buddies through work. I felt blessed. I made a lot of really good friends through work, but as you get older, as an adult, I feel like it just gets harder and harder to develop like really deep relationships with people. Not to make this weird.
No, you're good.
But I love you.
And
and it's been great to be able to, like, even if you don't share everything in comment, or like there's music stuff that like Kyle doesn't listen to my music, but like, I don't know. I just love the heck out of him and love hanging out. And it's just, he's a good dude. You find good people in your life, you want to hang on to them. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. Anyways.
So kind of, so let's take it to fantasy football, and let's talk about the first leagues you guys were in.
I was in a league with my cousins. Everything was scored by hand. My eldest cousin John was the one who was the commissioner. Terrible in hindsight. Terrible decision. I was like 12. I was just excited. My dad has. Sorry, I should explain this. My dad has 4 sisters, and I have, I think 18 cousins, and all but 3 of them are boys. They're all dudes. We grew up in the country, so like we would all, not in the country, but we all grew close together. So we would see each other all the time. I have a very I grew up super family oriented from that perspective. So he would run it. And it was no PPR because that didn't exist back then.
Definitely didn't exist.
Yeah. And I very distinctly remember the year that I drafted Sean Alexander, and I won the league. And it was like the first, and I don't remember what year it was. I just remember like as my first like fantasy win, just getting lucky that this guy just scored 20 whatever it was, 26 touchdowns that year. And I was like, oh, I'm so good at this.
This is so easy, huh?
Yeah. And then fantasy, it comes back to get you. And then I didn't win for a really long time. Until
you had that taste of victory already.
That's all it takes.
You kept coming back.
Yeah.
I got your fantasy football right here. Boom.
Yeah. 2005, 27 touchdowns, 1,880 yards.
370 carries. Good.
This is what happens when you have a research guy on your show.
That's
right?
exactly what it is.
This is the most numbers we've ever had.
I'm
Like,
sorry.
we need one of those. We need one of those. That's
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And both of you guys, very different roles, but like, both of you guys at some point made the decision that like, I want to take what I'm doing and not just be a consumer of fantasy. Like you became a contributor and, you both do, very different things, but like, what was that was there a moment in your mind that you were like, I can take what I'm doing and my personality and what I'm good at, and I can use it in this fantasy space?
I'm going to let Kyle go first because I'm going to talk a lot.
Sure, no, that's fine. I made the decision a long time ago, but the time companies and stuff made the decision wasn't that long ago. I'd been doing free fantasy stuff on the side, lunch breaks. I was a waiter. I worked in medicine. I worked a whole bunch of stuff I didn't like and was doing fantasy on the side to make it work. And then eventually a door opened. I walked through and just kind of keep pushing and not letting that door close. It's kind of my story. It's grunt work that turned into hard work that turned into turning a passion into a career. And I realized I got lucky, and I wake up every day knowing that. So
yes.
You and me both. I think most of us at ESPN, in all honesty, know that there's like a really big understanding that like we are super blessed to be able to do what we get to do, to get paid to talk about sports for a living, and the prep that we're doing is around something that we love. Like all in all, and I'm not sure other than who you've had from Focus, I'm not sure what other ESPN people you've had on, but like I get the sense that like most everybody that we work with is like really, really genuine and super understanding that like we're
absolutely.
It's a talented industry. Like we're lucky to be here. It's
really,
not because we're the best.
Really
it's
lucky.
We got lucky and we're taking advantage of that lucky break. But it's really a loaded industry. It just is.
Yep. So, and please jump in at any point to stop this. And ask questions along the way. I joined the military. I was in the military for 6 years. I was in the Air Force. I worked for the National Security Agency the whole time that I was in. I was stationed in Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii for 3 years. And then I was stationed in Fort Meade, we'll just call it Fort Meade. And that was in between Baltimore and DC. So I lived in Baltimore for about 2.5 years. And I did a year in Texas as a part of my training in tech school. And I joined the military not knowing what I wanted to do, and I didn't really have a great direction in life. I wasn't super driven. I was 23 years old. College wasn't really working out. I was just sort of that like kid that was living with mom and dad and was just trying to figure out like how am I going to get my life together and not live with my mom and dad until I'm 30. So I joined the Air Force. Super grateful for everything it taught me. Helped me grow up a ton. And it taught me a lot that I am very, very, very thankful for. It was not what I wanted to do for a career at all. I was very sure of that. And I wanted to try and do something within the entertainment industry. I really wanted to work at a label. And there is a band called Straight Light Run that has a song. Lead singer John Nolan says, and I'm convinced that wondering what if is the worst thing there is. And the whole time that I was in the Air Force, it was like, I know I could re-up and I have guaranteed money and I could retire it early, but I don't love this. And I want to get out and try. Like, I feel like now that I have instilled some kind of work ethic in me and I understand what it means to like be an adult, like whatever that switch was, it just finally clicked and life started for me as a grown-up. And so it's like, I want to try this at something that I love doing, not just at what it is that I'm currently doing. And so, I decided to get out of the military, went to a school called Full Sail University in Florida, graduated from Full Sail and did pretty okay there. And then I got an internship. I was lucky enough to get an internship at ESPN. Being a veteran helped, just for people, because everyone always asks questions. Being a veteran like helped, just very honestly. But also my school had a little bit of a relationship with ESPN. And so I had asked my department head, based on how I had done in school, would you mind writing me a reference for this? And they had just met, like very lucky on my side and just chance, random things happening. My department had just met with the digital audio department, which is where I still currently work, about 2 months beforehand when they came down and they were talking about some things that Full Sail did with like an ESPN part of their campus. So my department head had talked to my soon future boss, and I just got lucky that the world worked out in a way when I said, would you do this? He's like, I actually know who that person is. We just connected. So he wrote me a great reference, and there were 16,000 applicants to be an intern, and I was one of 10 people that was chosen, and I super lucky to get that chance.
Your own luck. You deserve that luck.
So I'm halfway. So I was a PA for a long time. I went from being an intern and like as a 29-year-old intern that just got out of the military, it's like I need to have a career. I can't like mess around. I'm not like 23 and I can still figure it out. Like I got to do this. And I was about to be getting married at that time. So I felt quite a bit more pressured because of the idea that it wasn't just like me being able to like eat ramen by myself if I'm just a 29-year-old guy that's unhealthy eating ramen by himself. So that was a big thing, is trying to convince ESPN as a part of my internship that they forgot how the job existed before I got there. That I made myself so invaluable that it's like, hey, at the end of these 10 weeks, they're like, we actually don't know how we're going to survive when Daniel leaves, because he took on so much responsibility that him leaving is going to be like actual disruption to our department. And that was my entire mindset, was go on and learn and grind and do as much as I can to prove to them that I am worth it to stick around here. And about 8 weeks into the internship, the boss that I had at the time, Sharita Johnson, pulled me into the office and she was like, hey, listen, I can't offer you a full-time job, but we would love to keep you here. And I can offer you a part-time job working 29 and a half hours. And if you want to take that, then she's like, I promise, I can't promise you anything more than that, but I promise you that like, if you keep up what you're doing, like we would love to find a way to make you full-time. And so then it became that secondary grind of like, all right, now I'm a PA. I found a way to get into ESPN. I'm actually officially here as a real employee, not just as an intern. Now I've got to grind my way from being a PA to like, when a full-time position with benefits comes available, I'm the person that they want. And so I tried so hard to adopt that mentality of like, even if I didn't have an answer to a question, or even if I didn't know, what it is that, we were trying to be able to find, it's never a no, I don't know. It's always, I'm not sure about that, but let me find out. Let me do a little bit of research, or I can talk to somebody and let me try and get an answer for you, and I'll connect with you in a little bit. And I always wanted to be that person that people could go to and say, I'm not sure what the answer is, but Daniel helped me out last time. Maybe he knows you. Why don't you go ask him? Because then eventually that just happens enough that you get known as that person in a department. And so that was, and I hate it. This feels so braggy to say that. I hate talking about but that was my mentality of like, you have to make yourself indispensable when there's everybody else that you're competing against in that world. So eventually within like about a year and a half, I was able to take on a full-time role, and I was super grateful for that. And the producer who was working on Fantasy Focus at the time, Fantasy Focus football podcast, just in case you have any listeners that don't know, Matthew Berry, Phil Yates, Stefania Bell, Mike Clay. We've been doing the podcast for this year is our 13th or 14th year. It was one of the first fantasy, if not the first fantasy football podcasts in the industry, at least at ESPN for us, for sure. So I know they were Matthew specifically was a very early adopter of that. So the producer of that show was leaving, and I loved fantasy football. I'd been playing for a long time. We talk about it every time that I'm at work, even though I didn't do it. I worked on a bunch of little podcasts and some NASCAR podcasts and some hockey podcasts. And I tried really hard to just prove that I knew how to, if nothing else, even if I didn't know the content, I could make what comes out of the speaker sound good. And that's what matters. Like, I have other people here. There's a hockey editor that I can go to. I don't need to know everything about hockey. I can say, hey, help me with some things. Are we talking about the right things in the show? Because this is what the host wants to talk about. And I can let them do that. I can just make sure my job of it sounds polished and it comes out clean. Like, just crush it every time. So I did a pretty good job of that. And when the producer left, I asked if I could take over. I was like, I know football. I could easily fit this into my schedule. And Matthew and I'd filled in a couple times while Jay Soderbergh, who was the original producer, was there. Pod Vader. And so Matthew and I started working together then, and I spent a half a season with them. And when the next year came around, they decided just to leave me as the full-time producer of that show, which was fantastic. Matthew and I worked together really well. That was back in the Nate days, back when Nate was the co-host for any of the OG fans of the podcast. And so I got to work with them for about 2 years until Nate left. And when Nate left, we brought on Field, and that was Stefania obviously was there the whole time, but we brought on Field as the full-time host. And the real crux of the conversation comes in where working on Fantasy Focus, doing a whole bunch of stuff, brought video to the podcast, was really stoked about being able to use our platform to do that and find good ways to be able to deliver content to fans and find new ways to distribute a lot of what we're doing for people. And so Matthew was getting his own TV show in 2016.
4 now?
Yeah, 5. So 2016. And he asked the TV producers if they didn't mind if I sat in on some of the meetings, just because he thought that I had done some creative stuff with the podcast. And I was unbelievably flattered that Matthew would think that highly of me, that he would ask me to sit in the room with the TV producers and talk to them as from a creative standpoint. That meant the world to me. So I sat in on one meeting, and we talked about a lot of things and a lot about what the show could be. And we had probably about an hour and a half conversation, and we ended up walking back to his office, him and I. And on the way back, I said, Matthew, the one thing that stands out to me, I love you, but I don't think you should be the host. Like you should have somebody at times to be able to help tee you up and to be good at stuff, and not someone to challenge you, but someone that's there that you have that relationship with. And I said, this is going to sound crazy, but I actually have someone in mind that I think could be good for that role. And he was like, all right, what are you thinking? And I said, well, I think that I would be really good at that. I think that over the last year and a half, we've done a really good job of developing our relationship. I think that we have really good chemistry with each other. We joke and we get each other's jokes comedically very well. We work with each other. You know that I'm not here to challenge you from a fantasy perspective, but what I do know is I know my fantasy content, and I can absolutely talk about it and set you up from a positive perspective, or lead into conversations so that you know that I can do all those things with you. And I'll do whatever it is that you want me to do on the show. So find someone else that's going to do that. And he was like, you know what? That's not a terrible idea. And the long story ends with me 4 years and 1 day after I started as an intern at ESPN. I was co-hosting my first show on ESPN2 5 days a week for an entire football season with Matthew Berry. And I have no idea how it happened. And I'm just so unbelievably blessed that relationships and meeting people and working with others. And I cannot talk enough about how much relationships have impacted my journey, and finding the right people to be able to advocate for you and to work with. It is so unbelievably amazing to have people in this industry that I've been able to work with and become friends with. And I am so thankful for all of the relationships that I made along the way. Matthew obviously has been huge for me, but that's my quote unquote story into everything. So I apologize because I talked a lot.
No, that's great. Absolutely great.
Oh, Major, we can't.
I think we lost Major's audio.
Major?
He's not on. Yeah.
Oh, Major. That's
Well, Major's trying to figure that out here. Obviously, you guys have done a lot of shows, a lot of podcasts, done a lot of guest appearances, all that kind of fun stuff there. Kind of both of you, because you've, as a researcher there, Kyle, you've probably been on every show too, in the background and whatnot, being part of the show, being that backbone, as Daniel mentioned earlier. Is there one podcast or one moment in podcast history for you guys that kind of stands out more so than any other?
Yes.
One guest maybe, or
do you have one?
No, go shoot.
There's one moment that stands out to me, and it was the Alfred Morris rant.
Oh my God. That stands out. Sure.
There was, for those that don't know, Matthew needed literally 1 point from Alfred Morris, and literally 1 point. And it didn't happen after he got like, I don't know, it was something like 16 points in the game. It was
hyped up, and
he had a big week the week before.
He had a big week the week before, and then he just literally didn't touch the football. They never used him, and it's always fun. This is one of my favorite parts about my job. I love working with Matthew. One of my favorite parts about my job is when you come in and Matthew's just like, I got something for the open. And sometimes you can just tell where it's like,
I'll never tell you what it is.
All right, we're just gonna roll with it live and see what happens. How about that? And sometimes we talk about it, like we're in the control room beforehand. We're just chatting about what we decide we want to talk about. That's probably the last thing. We don't really script the open, but like if we're all vibing on something, we'll open the show with it. And Matthew and that Alfred Morris rant was just like, oh my gosh, I felt so bad, and I felt this intensity inside of him where he just needed to let it out. And it's like that. Genuine. It was very genuine. And Matthew's an entertainer and he does that very well, but like it was real to him. And I know him well enough to know that it was like real. So that was a very cool, passionate moment for me to watch.
I would say for me, the podcast moment, just any of our live shows, like we're behind the glass. It's always the five of us or whatever talking into a microphone, and we know a bunch of people are listening, but you don't really have a context to that until you're in a live environment, and it's like it's a sold out club or whatever it is, and it's the passion in the interviews and stuff after, and just the fan interaction. It's not one moment. I know you asked for one moment, so I'm kind of skating by that, but it's why I'm in this industry, like to impact people at that level and to be reaffirmed of it. I know it's there, but to see it really helps.
I take back my answer. I'm going to skip
Alfred Morris, close second.
Alfred Morris still is number one, but we did a live show in Michigan. And that was like, for me, like a homecoming. We did it at St. Andrews Hall. I had done a show there with Jalen and Jacoby, which was incredible being in Detroit with Jalen Rose. It was just so amazing to experience it. And we went back as Focus to do it. And like, they make it very clear, as a producer, I'm very lucky that I'm very much an on-screen producer with Focus, and so my personality is a part of that. So we know that I'm a Michigan fan, and even though I didn't come from Detroit, I'm from Midland, Michigan, which is quite a bit higher up in the state. By Midland, Bay City, Flint, Saginaw. Everybody just assumes that I'm from Detroit when we talk about it. So I had a lot of people that were there, and I know that our podcast is big. We all know that our podcast does big numbers, and we're very blessed and super thankful. But there is such a thing as like, you just get into this hamster wheel routine of like, not that I take for granted how big we are, but sometimes you just forget how many people you touch on a daily basis and the numbers that you can reach as a part of that. And so even though our live shows are smaller, being able to have people come out and talk to us afterwards and tell us a story about how our dumb fantasy podcast impacted their life in some way. Like, first off, it's uncomfortable in like the most beautiful, amazing, loving, touching way that I would never want to change. You almost don't know what to say, but it's just like, I know I could tell you all the people that have made me feel the way that you're describing to me. And so for me to feel like I've been able to do that for someone is just like, it's an indescribable feeling that you're 100% right. The live shows are amazing. They really are.
I hope we get them back soon.
Me too.
I love that. I love both of your answers were awesome there. I love that in your story, Daniel, we got now both sides of how that your show with Matthew came up, because Matthew shared it as well. And one of the things that he said about you is he said, like, there's just nobody quite like Daniel, like in this space. Like, you're tattooed up and your musician background and like just your personality is so creative. There's not a lot of, big name people that are on TV that are like that. And so just kind of curious, like, what was there a point where you were like, I've got something that I can add to the fantasy football or fantasy space that just nobody sees? Like, did you see that about yourself, or did it take someone like him seeing it in you and then empowering you to do it?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna step in here. If you know Daniel and you talk with him for any amount of time, you know that. Like, it's like, yes, Matthew Berry has power and like his voice goes a long way, But let's not act like he uncovered some stone here that nobody else was aware of. Daniel's a pretty special person, and it's pretty obvious early on when you meet him. So, like, yes, Matthew elevated him, but it wasn't by mistake.
I love you.
Nice.
I love
You know what? We've only been chatting for about 50 minutes, and I can see that just by having these conversations. The type of person you are, the genuine, the humble in everything you do. It's fantastic. And kind of the question here is, we know you weren't happy with the military, the Air Force. Like, you're looking at these, like a strategic data analysis and intelligence analyst. These things like these are things that would drive me up the wall. I would not be able to do those to begin with. But say you don't want to go back to the military and you didn't want to get into the whole fantasy football, didn't break out for you. I was kind of thinking, what would Daniel Dopp be doing right now? And like you mentioned earlier, you guys kind of brought video to your show at first, and we do have video here too. So I know for one, you wouldn't be running a laundromat because laundry is one of those things that doesn't get really done. But I thought maybe you could run your own little car wash. So I'm just going to put this video on here real quick.
My other clothes were all dirty. All right. So, some context around that.
That was a Wednesday. That's the context. It was a Wednesday.
I
My girlfriend
said it was a Wednesday. I love that.
It was. That's the context you need.
My girlfriend and I decided, why not make a video? That was like the start of the pandemic, and I don't want to at all belittle it. But from my perspective, like it was like that honeymoon, early honeymoon stage of whatever you want to say, where like you're home from work and things are kind of getting figured out. But like I was being safe, so I felt really lucky. And it's like, this is actually pretty great. Like I can take advantage of like seeing people and the people that are in the house that I don't get to see all the time. And so we decided to do this video just about like how we were spending our time, like doing pandemic stuff. And so she just went around the house and she had a bunch of B-roll footage of, the dogs and doing stuff around here. And her and I put it together, and I was like, it would be funny if we just ran out. I was like, if everything, as we did the video, I just didn't do laundry and all of the rest of the clothes were done. And all I had left was this like swimsuit that I forgot. I was getting rid of a bunch of clothes to take to the Salvation Army. And I forgot that I had it. And she was like, that is going. And I was like, no, first let's do a video. Let's do something with it. And so we did a thing and had some fun with it. But, just trying to like let other people know you're not alone. I play video games during the pandemic and watch movies and chill just like everybody else. So.
And if you haven't seen the video, you have to head over to Daniel's Twitter there to catch it, because he's talking about all kinds of things that he practiced very safely during the pandemic.
Oh, that's true.
I will happily retweet this at the time of your choosing.
Oh, please. I'll tell you what, though, in all honesty, a part of this for me is being comfortable. It took me a long time to be comfortable and confident as a person. And I think that's just come in very recently for me. I've always been like kind of, I don't want to say wear my heart on my sleeve, but like I'm pretty open and transparent. I'm not that hard to read. And I didn't have as much self-confidence, I think, as I wanted for a long time. And that was a thing at ESPN that I discovered, and a part of it with, in the military that I discovered through work. When you talk about like, did I know that I could do these things, or did I know that I could I would have never thought that I would make a stupid video and put it out on Twitter and 75,000 people would watch me in this like tiny bathing suit. Like that's gross. But it's one of those things where it's like, I started to work with people and I started to have people in my life that were so affirming and they were so invested in who I was as a person and not just me being a number or a cog in the machine. And a lot of that came along. I'm currently in the middle of getting divorced, but a lot of that came along with, that whole process. and kind of reestablishing myself out of a bad relationship and finding not only who I was and finding that self-confidence in me again, but being with somebody now who encourages me and helps me to feel as though it doesn't make a difference what it is that you're doing, like you can do it. And I realize that's easy for me to say here because I had lucky breaks to be able to get onto TV to do stuff with Matthew, but like working with Matthew and having that affirmation of like, hey, the stuff you're doing is working, or like, this is really great. We appreciate this, or having that daily in my life with the person that I'm with right now is incredible. So I think it helped me get a lot better as I realized that self-awareness and trying to be able to give myself a little bit more self-love and fully understand what mental health was to me, if that makes sense. So it played a much bigger role, I think, than I ever wanted to give it credit for. So,
I mean, we've talked a lot about relationships in terms of what you've been, the crew at ESPN. We've got Kyle here with you. And, could you give us maybe, one or two other relationships that you've had along this journey that have been very, just very impactful or valuable?
So I'm gonna say Matthew, and then I'll give you two other ones because that one doesn't really count. Because I mean, Matthew Berry, I've been super blessed. I have a great relationship with Matthew. Him and I have had it out enough times. Not everything has been like amazing, and that's just part of like relationship with people, right? And we've worked through a lot of stuff. We've had some frustrations, and at the same time, like I love and respect the heck out of that dude. Man, nobody has done it better than him, and he was one of the first to be able to really make the game what it is today. And I am super honored to be able to work with him on any project, let alone being able to do it on a platform that's on ESPN. So like I will always, and I know Kyle would say this too, I will always and forever be indebted for Matthew helping me get into this industry. It's hard because I don't want to, like, I want to say everything about all of our co-hosts, but I'm going to say Mike Clay. I love Mike Clay more than anything. He's so much fun.
Decent bowler.
He is an okay bowler. He is an average bowler. Him and our friend DJ Gallo, who is one of the writers for the fantasy show. He came from the Sports Pickle, if you'd ever heard of the Sports Pickle back in the day. DJ Gallo is really funny and he's hilarious. He is behind all of the good stuff that we do at the fantasy show with Matthew Berry. So him and Kyle, the four of us are in a bowling league, and those two are like some of my most fun relationships because it's an outside of work thing where we are competitive with each other and also competitive with the other teams, but we're also not actually all that good. And it's just nice to be able to do something like to share that, like, I don't know, like that relationship is just fun to me.
I agree.
So
nice. What do you have in store for the rest of the off season?
Shows once a week for now.
Yeah, we're doing Fantasy Focus once a week. Hopefully getting hopefully my divorce is finalized soon. That would be cool from a personal standpoint.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. I think both of us would probably we're both probably just ready to move on. So I think I'm hopeful that'll just happen soon. And I really want to get down to Florida. I started dating somebody in the middle of the pandemic, and so because of that, we've now been dating for quite a while. And they've met my family over FaceTime, but she has not been able, her or her son have not been able to meet my family in person. So I'm really hopeful that we can get down there and see my parents and my little brother and sister-in-law and niece and nephew. I'm just hoping that can be an off-season thing that we do before the football season starts up, because once football gets here, you guys know how it goes.
And he's got a life. I don't. I'm doing baseball podcasts, basketball stuff. Like he's got the personal stuff. I do what I do.
How do you meet someone during a pandemic?
Her and I started dating a little bit before the pandemic had started.
Okay.
And then it's one of those things where like we decide we're gonna do this for real. If we're gonna do this for real, but we both want to take like social distancing seriously, like let's decide we're going to do this. So we're going to see each other, but we're not going to put each other in harm's way for anyone else. And we're going to be real safe about stuff. And so we did that for everything. So dating during the pandemic was interesting. For me, it really worked out. I am very happy and super blessed to be with the person that I'm with. She's pretty amazing, but Kyle would attest to that too.
She's female, Daniel. They say opposites attract in a lot of ways. That's not what this is. Like they're very similar.
So what you're saying is Daniel basically loves himself a lot here, right? Is that what we're going with this, Kyle?
I don't think that's breaking news to anybody, but all the nice things I said about him a minute ago apply to her and then some. She's great. It's a perfect fit. Like there's nothing more.
A great human being. Yeah, she's a beautiful person. So I'm very, very happy. So,
Kyle, can we go back to that the question about like who kind of took you under their wing or who kind of has helped you like in your career and like just who's been that for you?
Yeah, I mean it's well, Kyle. He's been a big part of things. Like there's no two ways about that. And everybody he mentioned has been great. My now wife has been phenomenal. I met her when I was 15 and dating ever since, and between working odd number jobs, working at a restaurant, moving from upstate New York to Bristol, like it's been a lot. And especially when you start a relationship so young, to go through all that and kind of grow together as I'm going through college, she's going through college. Wait, what do you mean you want to talk about fake sports and try to make that a living? Like, what the hell are you doing?
Fake sports.
Well, she's a teacher. Like, I want to tell my kids, like, I'm married to a fantasy sports researcher. Like, how can I make that sound a little bit better? Like, so these kids aren't aiming to do what you do. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve, but she's been amazing. And we are true opposites. I think Daniel would agree with that.
Yeah.
So the opposites attract thing. Like, if you're opposite, then you're
that relationship.
It can still work. But she's been there every step of the way and then some, and she's been better than I could have ever imagined, and I wouldn't be here without her. So it's sappy, yes, but it's also true. So I'm okay saying it.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Not to single shame at all. Hold on, I just want to say that like there's nothing wrong with being single, and that is totally okay.
Yeah,
that you do you and love yourself as you should. But yes, for Kyle and I, relationships are cool.
Cover all the bases. Nice.
Yes.
So kind of maybe to wrap things up with one more question, very specific advice for those trying to make it in the industry, wanting to take their podcast to the next level.
Okay. So for me, literally everything comes back to relationships. This industry is so big. One, you never know who you're going to run into. And there are so many people vying to try to get into such a limited number of slots to be able to do this for a living. And so it is, as you guys know, a grind just to be able to get noticed and to have all of that. And that's absolutely a part of every journey that I've been a part of within fantasy, even starting in the beginning. Like it was absolutely, a grind to be able to find out, at least for me, find a way to be able to get into this in a way that I can, make a living from it. And that was with me being lucky, being inside with ESPN. So relationships are everything. Relationships. My job is where I am today because of the relationships I've made with people. Learning how to be able to deal with people with different personality types as a producer is like a massively huge thing for me that I think has helped me just as a human be able to navigate a lot of different things, because some people, you need to be more tactful with the way you say it. Some people just want you to be blunt and they respect it more. Some people, there's all sorts of different personalities, and all of us like to think that we're super self-aware and that we're all really good at everything. And like, it's tough because we're not all. And I know that too. I try really hard to understand that everyone is in a different place, and I want to meet them where they are so that they hear me. Because my biggest fear is that I'm trying to talk to somebody and they're not going to hear my words. They're going to hear something other than what I'm saying. So understanding, a lot of it is meet somebody where they are, or explain it in a way that, this isn't how I would need to receive it, but it's how they need to receive it. Being cognizant of that has been really, I think, valuable to me and helpful to be able to build those relationships and having people be able to trust you, to talk about it. Not all of those conversations are good and super fun conversations. So when you can have those not fun conversations and still have the respect of somebody afterwards because of the way that you handled it, not in a braggy way, but like, dude, that just feels really good. Like, cool. That makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing because now I've just furthered a relationship through a really difficult time. And that's, what it's all about for me. So
that's a deep answer, and it's a great answer. Like, I'm not going to take anything away from that because that would just be a punchline. But I will say, understand what grind means. Like, a lot of people are I'm willing to put in so many hours. I want to do what you do. I want to, research. I want to be talent. I want to produce. Part of grinding is understanding that you're not always going to get the answer you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of people in this industry willing to work hard. And there's a lot of people that don't get jobs that are willing to work hard because they hear no and they don't like the sounds of that, which is fine. Nobody likes to hear no, but it's moving on from that and keep going and pushing past the no's. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what grinding is. It's being able to get past those hurdles. Not that hard work isn't grind. Like, that's part of the equation. Don't get me wrong. But if you're going to be stopped when somebody doesn't like what you have to say or isn't liking what you're doing or appreciating it, then you're not going to make it in fantasy and any other business. So if you're truly grinding, be okay with hearing no and get past it. Like, keep trying. If Matthew told me this when I first got here, our job is to hire good people and find good, like, our job's to get better. And if you're helping us get better, like, we will find you.
Yes.
It took me 57 applications to get into ESPN. Like, it took a little bit of time here. And don't think I wasn't counting, because I was. So it took a little, and I was a little, vengeful when I got here, but that it is what it is. Like, you gotta do it right.
Vengeful Kyle is the sweetest thing in this. Like, I tell you,
even sure
there's not a vengeful bone in his body. There is no vengeful Kyle.
I'm pretty intimidated. Yeah, no, but it is what it is. So just understand what you mean when you say you're willing to grind or do whatever it takes to make it, because you might be willing to put in the work, but are you willing to hear no? Are you willing to keep pushing? That's what it is for me.
And even if you don't get to that point, is it still worth it for you because you love it, and that's okay? Yeah. Like, obviously it's being able to build it to a certain point, and all of us want to be able to do it as a living and make money off of it. And then now I have a career that I love and I can do all these things. And like, there's a part that it's like, if you can't make a living or if you can't do it full time, like, if you still love it, you can find that balance. That's where,
worth doing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So
can I suggest that you guys, I know you guys probably don't have time, but can you guys do like a podcast together, or like,
I'd love it.
Like
I'd
a
love
TV
it.
show, like a TV show, like a cop show, like the
Good Cop, Bad Cop.
Yeah, exactly. Some of that type of stuff. We need that. We need that in our lives, man.
Heck yeah.
We can set it up. Why not? Everything's remote these days.
Yeah, we can shoot that. We'll get it in pre-production. we can do that.
So you, Kyle.
It's
Calvin.
Oh, it's me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just in awe of both those answers, honestly. But that might be the best answers we've gotten to that question, because that applies not only to fantasy sports, but that applies to literally all of life. That's great life advice. Like, and kind of the theme was just like being a good human, like, all the way throughout. And I just really it's inspiring on a bunch of different levels, but certainly one of those things that resonates with me, and I think these guys too. I know Matt coaches hockey, I coach baseball. I think like you said, teaching people, coaching people where they are so that they hear you. That really I loved that, and being able to hear. So we'll go ahead with that. We're so thankful for you guys taking your time. Let's start with Tera. Tera, just tell everybody you got quite an awesome YouTube series that you're doing right now that's dropping every single day, and it's been an undertaking. Speaking of a grind, Tera, tell everybody what you're doing and working on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I've been doing, I'm doing in the middle of, I think I'm on day 11 of 30 players in 30 days. And yeah, a grind. I didn't realize how incredibly hard and a commitment it is to do a video for every single day, but it's going great. And I've mentioned a few, I haven't mentioned any Packers yet, but I have mentioned a few Lions that I think are some good, that I think are some good grabs. And so, yeah, it's going good. The series is a playlist on the Dynasty Vipers channel. So if anyone's interested in it, of course, go check our channel out on YouTube, subscribe, and you can see all my videos there. I've got a lot to go. It's going good.
Nice.
I think Major might be a part owner in Clubhouse at this point. He's on there all the time, hosting almost every room I see. What else do you have going on, Major?
That's pretty much it at this point. I'm trying to develop my show, or I'm in the middle of developing my show, like Tera has hers. But yeah, catch me on Clubhouse every day, building the fantasy community on there, and meeting new people and having great conversations.
Matt, the Dynasty Vipers website is producing unbelievable amount of content right now from some great people. Just what's going on the website and anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, no, I'll just kind of turn it over to Daniel and Kyle here real quick, just because I know they don't have their Twitter handles up there. So Daniel, Kyle, where can people find you? What do you guys got? I know you got down to one show a week, and Kyle, you probably got like 12 different podcasts on the go right now too, right? Baseball, volleyball, women's field hockey. What's going on?
Hey, if people are willing to listen, we'll put it out. Right now, we're doing baseball twice a week. Trying to get a basketball podcast out there. That's a different story for a different day. Hopefully one of these days. But I'm at Kyle Safi, ESPN on the Twitter machine. I'll give you stats on anything you want. So come follow. And, I'm retweeting Daniel's video. So if you want to check out a graphic car washing video.
It's not graphic. It's SFW.
I don't know what that means, but it's graphic-ish. It's at least graphic adjacent.
Yes. It might be graphic adjacent.
That's up there, and it's
for
been retweeted for sure from March.
I am at Daniel Dopp on Twitter, DOPP, and I am at Something to Break on Instagram. And if you don't mind, we're doing the podcast Fantasy Focus once a week. We've got a couple episodes of the Fantasy Show with Matthew Berry out right now, where we reacted to rookies, where people went for free agency, available on ESPN Plus. So you can go check that out there. And I also want to say, if you don't mind, I'm going to just hijack for 2 seconds to say that I spent a lot of time this last year and a half watching a show called Critical Role, which is a big Dungeons and Dragons show run by Matt Mercer and a bunch of people there. And they have a line they always talk about. It says, "Don't forget to love each other." And I have been so unbelievably positively impacted by that show and what it is that they've done. I think mental health has been a really big thing for me, especially over the pandemic, to be able to be real and to understand, what it means to truly try and take care of yourself. I came out of a pretty abusive relationship. And so being able to understand a lot of how to deal with that and knowing that you're not alone. Also, you can be a dude and be in an abusive relationship. It doesn't always have to be physical. And so don't feel like you're alone if that's a situation. But I spent a lot of time, working on me and trying to get good from that perspective. And there were a ton of bands that helped me along the way. Phoebe Bridgers, Movement, Foxing, Julian Baker, Valley Heart, Future Teens, David Bazan, Manchester Orchestra, Pedro the Line. I mean, there's so many that I could list that were really, really valuable to me and my mental health. And so I just want to say to all of you, or to anybody listening, please don't forget to love other people because they are worth it. And don't forget to love yourself because you are absolutely worth it and you are deserving of love. You are an amazing human being. And I want you to be here tomorrow when the world wakes up. So I just want to leave with that.
Love that.
That's absolutely fantastic. I don't think I could close out any better than that myself. I just want to let everyone know, head over to fantasypoints.com, use promo code 21Vipers10 for 10% off that Fantasy Points subscription out there. That'd be great if you could do that. Obviously, we got the YouTube channel going on. Hit us on Spotify, hit us on the iTunes or Apple or whatever. By the way, this is a different podcast altogether, but I don't like Apple, man. That's I'm way too old for Apple podcasting. I'll tell you what right now. And I'm trying to make a Facebook account right now. Yeah, that lasts about 30 seconds before I had to shut down. And funny story, when I had to turn my screen off and go upstairs, my 7-year-old came down here and was like, "Dad, you got to come upstairs. The light bulb's cracked. The house is going to burn down." So I go running upstairs. Like, I turn off my screen, go running upstairs, get everything all done. That's just how the light bulb was. It's like one of those LED ones. It's kind of got that little bit of a case. Kind of thing.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's so good. That was what the big hurry was for when I disappeared. But
that's amazing.
Just to kind of go back to what Daniel kind of said here, in closing, know your value, love yourself,
Absolutely.
And then love your brothers and sisters out there, because you know what? We never know what each other's going through, and some of us aren't always open. But if we can just be kind to one another, a simple smile, a simple like on a tweet, these little things can go a long way. And I think we need to be more understanding what those little things are and put forth that kind of effort in everyday life. So, I said, know your value and love one another. Like Daniel, I couldn't said it any better myself. And with that, you know what? This is the ViperCast. We're out here. And you know what? We love you.